George Lucas wrote this character in the 1980s, and she was a female leader of the Rebel Alliance. That's an extraordinary position for a woman.
How would you describe your character, Bix Caleen, and how she fits into the larger story Andor is telling?
Bix is an old friend of Cassian Andor's. I think the second you meet them, you understand that there's history, that there's tension, that they've been through a lot together. Bix makes a big decision, and I think everyone in the show does. Sorry, my guard. I don't know if you can hear my garden, but he's very present. Okay, great. I think. I think that everyone in this show is going through something very specific. And I think, everyone can feel the oppression that the Empire is sort of giving or putting in. And I think everyone has a big decision to either be a part of it or not be a part of it, or question it or not. And I think that's how sort of Bix gets more and more involved. I think she has a big question, which is, do I help this person that I love and trust, knowing that it's going to be to my own detriment, and knowing that I don't know enough about his reasonings, but I trust him, and I want to make sure that he's good and okay.
Now, Bix is old enough to remember a world before the Empire. What Star Wars stories did you read or watch to develop the character to make sense of her own views of the galaxy?
Yeah, I watched everything before Rogue One, because I wanted to sort of know what point in history I was in. Of course, that was super important. I think tonally, I sort of had to drop that quickly. I think, Tony created this show, which very much fits into the Star Wars timeline, but also tonally, he was really trying to make a story about people, a story about humans, and make it incredibly grounded and make it about what is coming instead of exactly what had happened. And in that piece, I really focused on Marva as a character, because I think that's who Bix sort of looked towards. So I focused more on that. And I think we're in a moment in history in Andor where every day is a survival day. I don't think Bix is questioning too much what had happened. I think Bix is living like, I gotta survive today. And I think it's a very Ferrixian way of thinking. And I think people, when they see Ferrix and understand Ferrix and understand the quality of Ferrix, people are living day by day, man. It's a tough city to live in, but there's camaraderie that sort of holds them together. And so I really focused on Marva as a character. She was a rebel before there was even a rebellion.
So you first played Mon Mothma for 2005's Revenge of the Sith. What have you learned about the character all these years later that you didn't know about her then?
I mean, so much more. I think when I first stepped into her shoes, I had the great fortune of being able to watch Caroline Blakeston's Mon Mothma from Return of the Jedi. So at that stage, I felt it was her character and that I was stepping into her shoes. And I just hoped to serve her vision of Mon Mothma and George Lucas's vision very well. I think now, after many years of having the opportunity to step into her within different iterations of story, but also the different versions, whether it was animation or film, but now getting the opportunity to explore her within that long form narrative that is television, I have learned so much about her, not just about her as a political figure, but about her as a woman. And I think that's that's such a great opportunity that Andor has and Tony Gilroy has given us, is this opportunity to meet Mon Mothma as a woman.
This is your fourth time playing her, but it's your most substantial role in the franchise to date. She's also been a part of Star Wars since the original trilogy. Why is her story not only one worth revisiting, but one that is worth investing in more time than ever?
When I first played her and I watched those scenes, I watched Caroline Blakeston's scenes in Return of the Jedi, I was curious about her. I was deeply curious about this woman, who she was, how. George Lucas wrote this character in the 1980s, and she was a female leader of the Rebel Alliance. That's an extraordinary position for a woman, not only then, but now. So the opportunity to learn about her, to discover about her, in that very first scene, she has that line that people quote to me and all the time about this character, about many Bothans died, you could see that well, I thought that Carolyn carried a pain when she said that. I was always really curious. What was that? What is that? What happened to this woman? What did she have to sacrifice in order to be here? What is her story? So the opportunity now to get to discover a part of that feels timely.
Well, I know you can't spoil anything, but what new element of this beloved character are you most excited for fans to see?
I'm excited for fans to meet not just the senator, not just the leader, but the woman behind that. To meet a woman who has a home life, a woman who, for the first time, I think, is not surrounded by rebels, a woman who is steeped in Senate, who is steeped within the empire, and a woman who has to operate in a murky, grey side of politics and life, much, much murkier than we've seen before. A woman who has to risk, and a woman whose life and choices are possibly terribly dangerous.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Cheers.